Welcome to Breaking Bulletin. In this special documentary report, we're diving deep into a major international legal case unfolding before the International Court of Justice in The Hague. At the center of this high-stakes hearing is the Republic of Sudan, which has filed an accusation against the United Arab Emirates for alleged complicity in acts of genocide carried out by the Rapid Support Forces during Sudan's ongoing civil war. This case is not just a regional conflict, it's a reflection of the evolving role of international law, geopolitics, and human rights enforcement in an increasingly multipolar world. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to stay informed with Breaking Bulletin, where history, law, and power converge. The ICJ case brought by Sudan revolves around serious allegations that the UAE has materially supported the RSF, a paramilitary group implicated in egregious human rights abuses and potential acts of genocide against the Masalit people in the Darfur region. Sudan's acting Justice Minister Muawiyah Osman told the court that the current genocidal campaign against the Masalit people could not continue without direct and deliberate aid from the UAE, which allegedly included military shipments and logistical support. Sudan is asking the ICJ to not only recognize this alleged complicity, but to issue provisional measures forcing the UAE to halt all aid to the RSF and to pay reparations. If successful, this would mark a monumental legal precedent against a wealthy Gulf state that has positioned itself as a regional stabilizer and humanitarian donor. The roots of the current conflict lie in Sudan's tumultuous political transitions and the rise of competing armed factions after the ouster of President Omar al-Bashir in 2019. The RSF originated from the Janjaweed militias that gained international notoriety for committing atrocities in Darfur in the early 2000s. These militias were integrated into Sudan's official security architecture under Bashir and later evolved into the RSF following the revolution. Sudan's transitional government struggled to assert full control, leading to rising tensions between the Sudanese armed forces and the RSF. These tensions exploded in April 2023, igniting a civil war that has devastated Khartoum and other regions. The international community has responded with alarm, but limited effectiveness. Western powers like the UK and the US have struggled to influence outcomes in Sudan due to complex regional dynamics. Egypt, with deep military ties to the SAF, and the UAE, allegedly backing the RSF, considered more influential players. Sudan's legal team at the ICJ referenced reports from the United Nations and the Yale Humanitarian Research Lab, which indicated credible evidence of weapons being funneled from the UAE to the RSF via Chad. These included Chinese-manufactured 155mm howitzers used in the bombardment of the Zamzam IDP camp in December 2023, an attack that caused significant civilian casualties. The UAE has strongly denied these allegations. Speaking before the court, Reem Khatate of the UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs described Sudan's case as a misuse of international institutions and labeled the claims as fabricated and politically motivated. The UAE insists it has not supplied arms to either side and emphasizes its humanitarian efforts in the region, including the construction of a field hospital near the Chad-Sudan border. IA Ambassador Amira Al-Hafati told the court that her country has no active licenses for the 7 RSF-linked companies sanctioned by the United States. The UAE's legal defense hinges partly on a reservation it entered when signing the Genocide Convention in 2005, asserting that the ICJ lacks jurisdiction to adjudicate disputes involving UAE compliance. The legal question of jurisdiction is critical. If the ICJ accepts the UAE's reservation, it may refuse to even assess the merits of Sudan's genocide complicity claims. However, if the court finds that the reservation is invalid or inapplicable in this context, it could proceed to a preliminary ruling on whether the UAE's actions plausibly contributed to genocide. Legal experts are watching closely as this will determine how far international law can hold powerful states accountable for actions carried out indirectly or by proxy. It also raises the broader question of how the Genocide Convention is interpreted in cases of state complicity, particularly in complex multi-actor conflicts. The Masalit people, a black African ethnic group in Darfur, have long been targeted by Arab militias. During the height of the Darfur genocide in the early 2000s, they were among the hardest-hit communities, with tens of thousands killed and displaced. The RSF's alleged actions today mirror those earlier atrocities, including systematic killings, forced displacements, and sexual violence. Reports from humanitarian agencies suggest that entire villages have been razed, with survivors forced to flee into neighboring Chad. Sudan's argument is that the UAE's continued supply of weapons, intelligence, or financial aid, even if indirect, makes it an enabler of these crimes under international law. The implications of this case extend far beyond Sudan and the UAE. If the ICJ moves forward, it could empower other nations to bring legal challenges against third-party states that support armed groups committing atrocities. This would elevate the Genocide Convention from a symbolic treaty to a functional mechanism for global accountability. Conversely, if the case is dismissed due to jurisdictional technicalities, it may reveal critical gaps in international law that allow powerful states to evade scrutiny. Observers note that such outcomes could embolden proxy warfare globally, where states arm militias in conflict zones without being held accountable for their role in human rights violations. The Sudan UAE case is also a test of political will among international stakeholders. At a recent UK-led conference in London, aiming to create a diplomatic contact group for Sudan, Arab states, including the UAE, refused to sign a joint communiqué. This diplomatic rift underscores the challenge of creating multilateral solutions in a polarized geopolitical environment. Analysts argue that the UAE's involvement in Sudan is driven by strategic interests, including countering political Islam, gaining access to Red Sea trade routes, and projecting influence across Africa. These ambitions place it in direct competition with Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Turkey, each with their own visions for Sudan's future. As the ICJ prepares to make its initial ruling, both sides await a judgment that could redefine the legal landscape for state responsibility. Sudan hopes that even a provisional order from the court will deter further military support to the RSF and boost international pressure for a ceasefire. For the UAE, which has worked hard to cultivate a progressive international image, being credibly accused of complicity in genocide would be reputationally damaging. Its influence in forums like the UN, the Arab League, and COP climate summits could be weakened if the ICJ allows the case to proceed. The Sudanese legal team has relied heavily on precedent, citing past ICJ cases where states were found responsible not only for their direct actions, but for failing to prevent genocide by actors they materially supported. They referenced the 2007 ICJ ruling on Bosnia versus Serbia, in which Serbia was found to have failed to prevent genocide at Srebrenica. That ruling also clarified that complicity includes providing aid with knowledge of genocidal intent. Sudan's lawyers argue that the scale of violence in Darfur, combined with documented support from the UAE, fits this legal framework. Looking forward, the case poses difficult ethical and legal questions for the international community. How should states be held accountable when they empower armed groups, even unintentionally? Should geopolitical interests be considered a valid defense against allegations of complicity in atrocity crimes? And what are the limits of international justice when it comes to enforcement against wealthy and influential nations? Thank you for watching Breaking Bulletin. As we await the ICJ's decision, we encourage you to think critically about the role of global justice in a fragmented world. Does this case represent a turning point in how the world addresses state complicity in mass atrocities? Or will it expose the limitations of our international legal architecture? Please share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth reports on history, law, and world affairs.